This is a story of how I learned the importance of self-esteem. There is, when we were running the program in New Hampshire, and I mentioned, the challenges of the kids that we had for intake. We had one little girl come in on a Friday afternoon. Friday was like, the social workers work Monday through Friday, but the kids are having challenges 7 days a week. And the social worker brought this child by, 7-year-old girl, brought her by, maybe 8 years old, brought her by on a Friday afternoon around 4 o'clock in the afternoon and said, Shannon was the little girl's name. She said, Shannon's social worker is out sick this week. I don't know her case history. I don't have legal access to her files. What I do know is that she has to spend the night someplace. She can't go home. And that I'm very reluctant to put her in the children's detention facility, which was the only other option. Can you take her at least over the weekend as an emergency placement? And I said, yeah, sure. We'll take her as an emergency placement. And that night, Karen, who was the house parent in that house that we put Shannon into, Louise and I lived in the house next door. Shannon seemed like a normal 7 or 8 year old in most respects. She was kind of well behaved, kind of a little shy. Karen took her up and said, it's time to go to bed. Here's a nightgown for you to put on, and I'll come back and tuck you in 10 minutes. And she came back a few minutes later, and Shannon had changed into her nightclothes and was sitting on the bed. And Karen sat down and was going to read her a story or just talk to her. And she just reached over and said, so how are you, Shannon? And just touched her on the back, just touched her. And the moment she touched her, Shannon exploded, started screaming at her, coming after her with her fingernails, screaming, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to burn you, and just all this violent rage. And so Karen, in order to prevent Shannon from hurting her or hurting herself, she was flinging herself around and everything, basically just basic kind of physical restraint 101, just held her. And all the time she's trying to talk her down. It's okay, Shannon, don't worry, I'm here with you, I care about you, everything's fine, you're safe. And finally, after 5 or 6 minutes of pretty intense struggle, which for those of you who've been through restraint, that's a long time, although some can be much longer, but Shannon was basically immobilized, laying on the bed, just panting and kind of decompressing. And Karen looked down, and in the struggle, Shannon's nightshirt had gotten hiked up to the point where Karen could see the skin on her back, and it was covered with cigarette burns. When we conduct ourselves through life, we tend to put ourselves in a box and say, this is me right here. These are the borders of the box. There's a floor on which we stand, a ceiling above which we don't go, typically, walls out of which we don't pass. And these boxes tend to be created not by us, but for us, by the adults in our lives when we're children. And the boxes are filled with stories. We live our life by stories. There's no objective reality, really, for a kid, at least in terms of self-identity and all that sort of thing. There's the stories that we acquire from our parents, from our peers, and from our culture as a whole, from our teachers, from our schools, from everything else. And the story that Shannon had acquired was that she was the little girl who was so evil, so bad, so terrible in her behavior, that the only way to control her was to put cigarettes out on her. And she really believed that. And over the course of the next 2 years that she was in our program, the first 6 months anyway, she tested every single person in that program. Every single adult she approached. And there was 1,000 variations in it, but it was all meta to one simple thing. And that was saying to that adult, okay, I'm going to challenge you, and you're going to confirm to me that I'm so evil somebody has to put a cigarette out on me, or its equivalent. And instead, what she got from all of the adults in our program over and over and over again was, that's not the person you are. You're a good person, you're a decent person, you're a smart person, you're a person that can care, and you're a person that we care about, and we're going to make this work for you, and this is a safe place. Oh no, I'm terrible, I'm terrible. Oh, no, you're not. And if I have to hold you and tell you that I love you, and that's why I'm holding you, I will do that. But whatever it is, it's not going to be the reaction that Shannon had always gotten up until that point in her life. And it was amazing to watch over the course of those 2 years, this young woman who had come in so damaged change her internal story about who she was to becoming an honors student in school and doing very well and having a nice circle of friends and seeing that previous life as no longer a gut punch, vivid, bright, feeling it in their body all the time, but rather it had kind of gone off distant and become black and white pictures in the past, and all the submodalities associated with the recollections of her earlier life had shifted, and her behaviors shifted because her sense of self shifted. And that was why when Louise and I were sitting in that psychologist's office, the educational testing specialist, listening to our son be told he had a brain disease, a brain disorder that was going to cause him to fail in life, I thought, that's not a story I want my son telling himself through life. It's not the story I told myself. Now, I was in some ways rescued. They put us in this fast-track learning program where it was like you can learn anything you want as fast as you want. We had basically one-on-one tutors, right through 12 years old through 6th grade. And by 6th grade, by 12 years old, I was reading at college level. I was doing math, calculus and trig. I'd taken physics, the entire high school repertory of physics and chemistry, and basically had completed high school. In fact, when I was 14, I got a summer scholarship to Michigan State University in biology. And I am convinced that if I had had to sit in the boring, normal classrooms for those first years of my life, I would have ended up like several of my 3 younger brothers, diagnosed as being highly intelligent, ADHD, give them Ritalin, and put on pharmaceuticals. But it didn't happen to me. Instead, I came through with my self-esteem inflated, or maybe inflated is the wrong word, solid, intact. I didn't think I was Superman, but I thought, I can do things. I can accomplish things. I'm not afraid to step out. And I think that has served me throughout my life. Louise and I have started a number of things that people say, how could you do that? Well, we just did. We believed we could. And so these stories become crucial.